Hey guys, join us for week 3 of our DIY box truck Overland build. We're going to be dropping the tank this week and getting a fuel pickup tube installed for our hydronic heating system, as well as getting our countertops cut and a bunch more. So check it out. So today we're going to be tackling getting this tank out of here so that we can put in the fuel pickup tube. So far I've just disconnected the fuel fill hose, and now we're going to start undoing the carriage bolts. You can see there, that was the main fuel fill hose, and I've got a jack underneath it. We'll see how this goes. The fuel sending unit inside the tank is held on by a threaded ring, so with just a few taps of using a piece of wood so I don't spark anything, that came off pretty easy. And as you can see, the fuel pump assembly just lifts right out. Here we are, just getting the last bit of fuel out with a little hand pump. So the next step is us drilling a hole in this darn thing, and obviously we wanted to be careful about sparking any fumes, so we let the tank sit overnight so most of the gas evaporated out, and then we actually just filled the entire tank with water so that when we drilled into it we were confident there wouldn't be any fumes or gas for us to ignite. And yeah, overall that went really well. So yesterday we dropped the 60-gallon tank, drained all the fuel out, filled it full of water, and then I drilled a 7/8 inch hole right here. And that's for the fuel pickup tube for the S-Bar hydronic furnace. That all went really well. Yeah, a lot of crap to disconnect, and it's a little tight getting up here to disconnect things before you drop it, but all in all, it wasn't too bad. So today we're going to get the kind of fuel pump sending unit put back in. We'll get that all sealed up, and then we have the pleasure of putting this back in the middle of a snowstorm, so that should be nice. I left the bolts outside, which was stupid, so thawing those out. But anyways, I'm stoked to have that part of it done, and we'll see how today goes. After giving everything a good wipe down, we just put that fuel sending unit back in. There's a little gasket up top as well as that lock ring, and that went in no problem. So this here is the pickup tube that slides into this holder, and these don't come with the Rixson furnace kit. You have to buy your own separately, and they come pretty long. I think I bought the 2-foot long version, and I cut it down to, what was it? I believe it was 18¼ inches, and I'll double check that measurement. So the way I decided on how long to make it is I just took the dimensions of the bottom part of this tank and plugged it into a tank calculator app. I just Googled tank calculator, and it lets you put in the dimensions of the box, and then it lets you also tell how much fill you would have in that box, and it'll give you the volume. So this bottom box here, I forget what it measured, but if I filled it 2.5 inches, that left about, it was 13 point something gallons of gas. So that's roughly, so I'm setting this stick to be about 2.5 inches off the bottom. And then I gave myself a little bit of leeway. You can actually raise and lower this thing. It's got a tightening curl up top here. So you know, if you wanted to add another inch, you could, or take away a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of put it in the middle, and that'll allow me to adjust it should I want to have more or less reserve down the road. And it's important that this be cut at a 45. You don't want to just cut it flat. For whatever reason, they recommend a 45, and then just be really good about deburring it and get it nice and clean. Here I am installing a part of the Rixson heater system. It's basically a step-down coupling, so it has about a 1/4 inch inside diameter on one end, and then it steps that down to about an 1/8 inch inside diameter, which is then connects to the rest of the fuel line system. Don't mind me, I'm just thawing out the tank holding plate that I left outside, which is completely frozen to the ground. Okay, this is actually going better than I thought, especially by myself. I raised it up there, got into position. I just dropped it back down though to make a few electrical connections and some of the fuel connections, but it's looking good. Let's jack her up again. Now that the tank is back in and I've got that fuel pickup line ready, I just went ahead and ran the furnace fuel line down the frame rail there to the tank and got that all hooked up. And if you saw the previous video from last week, I discussed how I had to lengthen the wiring harness to get to the fuel pump, but everything looks good and it got all wired up and connected, and I'm excited to give this furnace a try. Today we're going to start with the electrical. It's actually like my favorite part, so I'm pretty excited. I think I've got everything in order. We've got an assortment of different lugs. We've got all of our wire, and we're just going to start plugging away. I've got a wiring diagram that we'll be referencing here, and yeah, let's get to it. So looking down at the electrical system here, we have our shunt, this half here, that's measuring energy in and energy out to the battery. And then we have this next device here, which is the master volt. It's basically a distribution, load distribution component. So we will connect our various DC loads here, and then we'll actually place fuses across the top here based on whatever load is appropriate for that channel and fuse. And those fuses are actually monitored in the system and can be referenced on the touchscreen display that will also be part of the C-Zone Master Volt Electrical. So we're gonna start just sizing some cable, and then I will start crimping, shrink wrap, and then we'll start getting some power installed. Stoked. So as far as cutting this big battery cable, I honestly just use these bolt cutters. I've tried some other cutters out there, and I'm sure there's some better stuff, but these actually do really well. Yeah, I think it's a pretty decent cut. So here I am just sizing up the lugs, stripping the wire for, this is going to be going from the Master Volt DC combiner to the C-Zone digital switching panel. And this is a 1 gauge wire. Alright, so we got the wire stripped I like to press it on nice and firm and be able to see just a touch of the wire under there. That's about perfect. That way I know I'm getting it fully seated. And then before we crimp it, we'll slide on our shrink wrap sleeve. And now let's head outside and give this a crimp. Alright, the crimping process is pretty straightforward. This is a hammer crimp. I'll leave a link in the description below, but I've been using it for years and it's worked really well. Just kind of position it like so. And whack the hell out of it. There we are. Not going anywhere. So as far as the shrink wraps go, these are what I get. They're ATD, they're from Napa Auto. And I like them. They're good, thick quality, and they have the glue underneath that'll actually kind of seep out. I'll show you here. Yeah, it's gonna be really hard to see, but there's actually a little bead of kind of clear glue that seeps out once they are fully heated. Not that it matters inside the camper, but you know, outside for water intrusion and that sort of thing, the stuff works really well. So we've got this end on, now we're going to size it and then we'll cut the other end. And when you're building battery cable stuff, always keep in mind the rotation of the terminals and how they might work for you. For example, I have these both mounted on the same plane, but sometimes you want to pivot 190 degrees. These bigger cables don't like to twist like that, so it's a good idea to plan out the rotation and positioning for each end. That can save you a lot of headaches down the road. Now it's just a matter of running all of the wires to the different components. Here I am sizing up the cable wire going to the inverter. Alright, so this here is the Overkill 100 amp 24 volt 8 cell BMS. And I've got two of these. We're going to have two 8 cell packs. So looking at the BMS, and again, these are to help monitor the DIY lithium batteries, protecting them against various parameters like under voltage, over voltage, temperature, that sort of thing. What we're looking at here are the primary leads that attach to the main negative of the battery, and then this lead here will go to the main negative for the electrical components. There's also a couple temperature probes here that will fish in between the batteries. And in the final component are the balancing leads. These just plug into the side of the BMS. And there's a balance lead for each one of these bus bars, plus your main positive and your main negative. And some people get confused. It doesn't matter when you're connecting these balancing leads. It doesn't matter if you're on the positive or negative of that battery. It's the same difference. So you could attach this balancing lead to either here or here, and it would be the same deal. The instructions are really clear about where to start and the numbering of the balance leads, but they don't specify which terminal to put it on because it doesn't matter when the bus bar is connecting them. So some people get hung up on that. All right, let's get this thing wired up. I also wanted to mention these don't come with terminals attached to them. They're just bare wires. I originally had done a terminal for each wire, and I didn't like how it was fitting with everything, so I actually pulled them and just combined the two wires into one terminal. I'm putting a heat shrink on down here to really help secure the two wires together, and then I'll put another heat shrink up here for the remainder, but this is going to be a lot cleaner for me. Alright, so I just fabbed up a little bracket. This is for I think this is a 50 micron pre-filter for the recirc shower. This is the first filter that the drain water goes through. And we're just gonna mount that up like so, and I've got a couple loops that will hold it in place. I roughed up the backside of the aluminum with some sandpaper, treated with the Sika activator, and waited about 15 minutes, and now it's ready to glue to the composite panel. Alright, so I've kind of marked up the line where it needs to go, and I am using a couple screws, but like I've mentioned many times before, the screws don't offer a lot of holding retention in this board, so we're really just using them to help secure the glue. So there it is, kind of roughly in that position. The drain will pump water from the drain through this device, and that will come out here. It's then going to actually go all the way to the holding tank for the recirc shower, where it is then pumped through the 3-stage filtration system. I wanted it to go through the 50 micron filter before going to the holding tank, just to get rid of any crud that might kind of settle and build in the tank. Because I ordered a slightly longer box, about a foot longer than what EarthCruiser usually sells with their core models, the existing bumper wouldn't fit using their stock brackets, so we had to just fab up some extensions to the frame rails to get the bumper on. I ordered some just U-shaped steel beams that fit right inside of the existing frame rails that we then just drilled through and bolted on with some grade 8 bolts, and welded that to the existing bumper. For a countertop, we're just using a butcher block top, and we're just getting that all measured out and cut, and we're going to be doing an undermount sink as well as faucet and a little soap dispenser. Well, as always, thanks a ton for watching. I hope you got something out of it. Like and subscribe. We've got more coming. Catch you on the next one.